So yesterday was Christmas morning, and like every year, my family started the day with a tradition that helps us focus on what actually matters. And so before opening any presents, we gathered around and we read Luke 2. And this is the story of Christ's birth. It's a beautiful reminder that Christ is our greatest gift, and it's why we actually give gifts to each other. This year, though, we did something a little bit different. After reading the story, my wife brought out a list. This is a full page of people that we know that lost someone this year. And this will be the first year they're celebrating Christmas without that person. And it was a sobering moment, but it actually reminded us as a family of how fortunate we are. Because my family, we didn't lose anyone this year. And obviously, we're very grateful for that. Um, back right before Thanksgiving, made a video where we did lose our family pet, our bunny. But even then, it reminded me of all the good times we had with them, and being grateful doesn't erase the hard moments, but it helps us to see our ways through the hard moments. And it just reminded me that again, gratitude is just a great principle, and it's something that we need to keep in mind as we're running our business, because it might be that as you're running your business that you're not where you thought you would be, that you're not making the revenue that you think you should have been making by now, that you haven't landed the clients that you were hoping to land, or things just got much more difficult this time than they have in the past. Whatever the case is, wherever you're at, stop and don't dwell on what you're missing. Don't dwell on the gap. There's a book called The Gap and the Gain, Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. And it's a really good book. And it talks a lot about actually being fulfilled in life. Um, After this, I'll have a playlist where I have some videos talking about fulfillment. And this definitely falls into that, because I really believe that gratitude is a big part of being fulfilled, because circumstances are always happening. Things are always happening. They're happenings, right? They just happen. So, and how we respond to those circumstances is how we're actually going to live our lives. Are we going to live in a joyful state or a depressed state, or somewhere in between based off the day, right? So, our circumstances can kind of dictate our happiness, if you will, because they're based off the happenings. But really, joy, true joy and fulfillment has to come from somewhere else. And for me, that's my faith. Again, we just came out of Christmas celebrating Christ, and that's where my joy comes from is him. He gives me the joy. I can't do things on my own without his strength, without his help, and I can rely on him and know that no matter what happens, he's in control. So I can take actions and make progress on what I think is the right next steps. But when I get stuck in my head of thinking I'm not far enough along, this thing's not working out like I thought it would, or that thing didn't happen the way I think it should have, that's the gap. That's where I am to where I want to be, and focusing on that gap. Instead of focus on that, we should focus on the gain, where we started from versus where we are now, right? And all the lessons we learned, the things we learned that worked, the things we learned that doesn't work, things that's worked on us to make us better, and things that actually did work that we've already forgotten about because we're so focused on what we're not, right? So again, that sobering moment made me realize that, um, you know, your focus can really be in a place that it's just not, it doesn't serve you well, right? In my quiet time, I'm actually reading through Job, and I'm only about halfway through the book, not quite halfway at this point. And Job, well, he's in a dark spot because all these things happened to him. And it was like you can't think of anybody that had a harder time in life than Job, where it's just back to back to back. People talk about the patience of Job, but back to back to back, his messengers came in, his servants, and said, um, all your children are dead, all your livestock is gone, and a bunch of different, catastrophes that occurred. While one was speaking, the other one came in with their report. I mean, it was like just back to back to back, no break with this, to the point that he had 3 friends come over and they just sat there in silence for like 7 days. But the whole time, Job didn't curse God, but he was in a dark spot. He didn't understand, and he knew he hadn't done anything wrong to do this. And the belief at the time was, if something bad happened to somebody, is because there was sin or some sort of action that the person took or didn't take. That was sin. That was iniquity. That wasn't right, and it was punishment from God. And while that can definitely be the case, we can definitely make choices and do things and get punished as a result. I mean, it's definitely a real thing. I mean, even just in social terms, you can go and break the law in some way and have to pay for consequences for doing such. But there's plenty of times that people aren't doing anything wrong. There's nothing wrong. Job didn't do anything wrong at all, and all these tragic things happened to him. So circumstances happen all the time, but it's how we handle those circumstances is what's going to determine how we're fulfilled in life, what kind of joy that we have in life. And my suggestion is this: when it comes to your business, think about the progress that you've made. Focus on the gain that you've made and not the gap that remains. Obviously, you need to pay attention to the gap to know which direction you need to hit and actions you need to take to try and close that gap. But your focus shouldn't be on the gap itself, right? In order to actually have fulfillment, because you can always want more and desire more and actually never be fulfilled. Doesn't matter what you get, right? You could 10x, 100x your income right now and still not be satisfied, right? So fulfillment comes from focusing on the past, what you've done, but it's not just about thinking about the challenges that you've overcome or the progress that you've made or the lessons that you learned. It is about that, and it's about celebrating that. But beyond that, it's beneficial just to take a moment, reflect on that, and have gratitude for what you have accomplished. But it's not just about the past. Okay. So I invite you to pause and just think about one thing that you're grateful for, not just in life, but in your business. What's one win that you've had, big or small, and leave that in the comments, if you will. I'd love to actually celebrate with you. And if you want more information on fulfillment, you want to dive deeper into this, then I have a playlist on fulfillment. It's called Unlock Fulfillment. You can check that out. It's full of insights and practical tips to help you on your entrepreneurial journey. But the point I was trying to make a second ago is just this. Remember, gratitude's not just about looking back. It's the foundation for actually moving forward. So with that, I hope you have a fantastic rest of this holiday season and a happy new year. And I'll see you in the next video.